If your messy house is constantly stressing you out and contributing to anxiety and overwhelm, today's video is just for you. We'll be talking about the 6 different ways that clutter and disorganization can negatively affect our mental health. Stick around. Welcome back. If you're new here, my name's Nina. I'm a life transformation coach, and here at this channel we talk all about our emotional well-being, understanding our own psychology, and leading our best life possible. So if you aren't already a subscriber, please go ahead and become one. We definitely want you to stay connected. So it turns out there's actually science behind the phrase, outer order leads to inner calm, and research has really shown us the very many negative consequences that can occur from surrounding ourselves with clutter. So if you are feeling a lot of symptoms of anxiety, having a messy house or being disorganized could definitely be contributing to this. Many of us may have great intentions of getting organized or cleaning up, but for some reason we never stick with it. We could make New Year's resolutions or talk endlessly about it, but again, never seems to really happen. And the problem is that living in a cluttered environment can greatly impact our mental health and even contribute to anxiety and depression. Chronic clutter can lead to prolonged stress, which can activate our fight or flight responses and trigger the release of the stress hormone cortisol. This can lead to an increase in both anxiety and tension and encourage unhealthy habits and coping mechanisms. Elevated cortisol levels can cause physiological changes such as an increase in blood sugars, heart rate, blood pressure, and fats in our blood, as well as affect our ability to think clearly or make decisions. It can affect everything from our sleep patterns to our ability to focus. And it can also trigger coping or avoidance strategies such as binging on television shows, especially television shows that are about decluttering or getting organized. It can encourage us to overeat or engage in other types of escapism. I've witnessed all of these things firsthand because I myself struggled greatly with clutter and disorganization for most of my life and found endless ways to distract myself from actually doing anything about it. And that inspired a video I made called The Psychology of Disorganization, What Your Messy House is Secretly Trying to Tell You. And I'm going to go ahead and link that in the description box below because it really talks about how we can get to the root of the problem and figure out why we are so disorganized and why, if we want to have a clean house, we have a messy house. So definitely check that out because when we can get to the why behind the behavior, it makes it so much easier to do something about it. I also want to validate how you might be feeling right now because I know that people that do not struggle with this oftentimes are very unsympathetic. They are completely baffled by the behavior. They do not understand why we simply just don't clean up. So if some of the things that I talk about today sound familiar, please know that you are not alone. This is actually more common than you may think. Also, conquering clutter and becoming organized really is possible. It will take some awareness, some self-awareness, and some introspection to get to the root cause, but this is something that we can actually correct if we have the desire to do so. So as you listen to the following list, please listen through a lens of self-compassion and self-understanding because some of these things may be hard to hear, but please know again that there is hope and it is definitely possible to change your life and to change this behavior. So with that being said, let's look at the top 6 ways that clutter and disorganization may be affecting our mental health. Number 1, clutter triggers feelings of guilt or hopelessness. Being in a messy house can make us feel like a failure, can inspire feelings of guilt and shame, and lead to an extremely negative internal dialogue. We could be telling ourselves things like, "You're hopeless. Why haven't you been able to get all this done?" It can also cause great embarrassment when people stop by unexpectedly and see how we live. It can affect our motivation and our self-esteem, which can leave us to feel helpless. Number 2, clutter leads to constant distraction and time wasting. In many cases, clutter pulls our attention away from the important aspects of our life and away from the situations that we should be focusing on. And on a practical level, it simply prevents us from being able to locate the things that we need. How many hours have you wasted trying to find your keys or trying to find an important piece of paperwork? This is something that would be continuously problematic for me. It can also be financially destructive when we have to replace items that we know we actually own. They're just lost or buried somewhere. When we're constantly distracted in this way or endlessly wasting time, we lose our ability to spend our time and energy on the things that we really do value. Number 3, clutter increases cognitive overload and can reduce our working memory. Clutter bombards us with excessive stimuli and causes our brains to work overtime trying to sort through all this information that is probably not important or even necessary. We have to understand that our brains really do crave organization. So when we are constantly looking at disorganized spaces, it just makes it very, very hard to focus. And this distraction can become so extreme that it starts to affect our working memory. Number 4, clutter reduces productivity and creativity. Clutter inhibits our ability to get things done and to be able to think creatively. And this is because the clutter has really invaded the space that we need to think clearly and to brainstorm and to problem solve. It also affects our motivation because when we're so overwhelmed, we don't even know where to start. So simply put, when we are consumed by stress because of all this chaos and disorganization, we simply don't have the space left over for us to be creative or to get inspired or experience personal growth. And all of this can really slow us down and make us much less productive in both our professional and personal life. Number 5, clutter causes harm to our relationships. It is likely that you've already experienced the frustration or anger or confusion by those around you who simply can't wrap their heads around this type of clutter or disorganization. When the people that we live with or work with really no longer feel that the space is a sanctuary that can provide comfort or security, but instead really triggers feelings of chaos, it can lead to a lot of negative emotions. And for many of us, we've actually developed an attachment. We have an emotional relationship with all this stuff that is cluttering up the space, and that can be very difficult for other people to understand. They may feel like we're putting our needs in front of their needs, which may make them feel disrespected or invalidated, or that we don't really care about how they think or what their feelings might be, which of course is going to negatively affect the relationship and cause us a great deal of stress and anxiety because we're going to be constantly worried about these relationships. And number 6, clutter makes it impossible to relax. And this is both mentally and physically because that clutter is going to constantly send signals to your brain that we have unfinished business, that we have work that still needs to be done. And really we have no haven. We have no place to unwind. In fact, the place that we should be unwinding is actually a stressor in and of itself. Physical clutter leads to emotional clutter and mental clutter, and that just adds layer upon layer of anxiety and negative emotions. And when we are unable to relax, there's really no way that we can keep our mental health in balance. Being surrounded by clutter can feel defeating, depressing, and exhausting, and it's robbing us of our energy and our health and our well-being and life satisfaction. Realistically, there's always going to be some level of clutter in our life, especially if we have children. But we need to explore how much is too much for us personally, and also be realistic and honest with ourselves about how this behavior really is affecting our life and our mental health. If you want further resources, please take a moment to watch the video that I mentioned earlier. I will again put it in the description box below, but that's a great starting point to help us really get to the bottom of why we have this problem to begin with. Also, please do become a subscriber because this video is going to be just one in a whole series about clutter and disorganization, and we will certainly address how to become organized if we are challenged in this area. So please keep your chin up, know that there is a solution for this, and that clutter does not have to take over your life. If you found today's video helpful, please like it and share it. Again, become a subscriber, stay connected, and I thank you so much for spending time with me today. Have an absolutely amazing day.